Blade of the Immortal by Takeshi Miike. I thought it was a good movie, and yeah, there were, some issues with it here and there, but I think that's kind of the thing when you adapt like a manga. Like again, you're only getting like a small part of a larger picture. So
That's true.
there's certain things you have to sacrifice, and like yeah, maybe it would have been more effective if they went for like the more dramatic ending where he just dies and it's kind of like sad and tragic, but to be honest, like Miike is kind of known for doing things like that, where he pulls kind of like a little gag at the end. Like that ending to me feels very characteristic to his kind of style.
Okay.
And with like the rock music kicking in. But because that was one of the interesting things about the movie to me. Like I've seen a few of Takeshi Miike's movies, and he has like a very intense, fast-paced, kind of charged up style, and he can be very graphic sometimes, very gory. Like the movie Ichi the Killer is a really good example of that. But this movie felt kind of restrained, like with the exception of the really huge battle at the beginning and a huge battle at the end. Like a lot of the stuff that happened in between where he was confronting the Itsu Ryu, whatever their name is,
Right.
like that felt, it was more kind of cinematic and more character driven, and that was cool.
I've been recently playing this game and like seeing this actor, seeing his actual acting chops.
Yeah, in like a live action movie.
It's like kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. Seeing like I could actually
the
believe this guy,
Judgment
right?
Yeah.
So going through the movie, the one thing I think for me that was kind of a flaw, I don't know if you noticed, but the pacing was a little weird.
At times, yeah.
Yeah, it felt either it was too fast or it was like there was missing information.
Yeah, it felt like the movie kind of shifted on a dime at times, where you kind of had to like, oh, what's going on? Let me catch up here. And again, I feel like that's kind of again a symptom of the larger manga thing, where things are kind of being left out, and yeah.
So I think that was kind of something I noticed. That I was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because earlier on when we were watching it, you mentioned that they should have had the immortal dude be like the last dude, and I kind of agree with you in the sense like I don't think that guy should have replaced like the main villain. Like the main villain was fine, but that stupid fucking Shira guy whose hair went white and he kidnapped the girl. Like they should have just, instead of that guy, it should have been the immortal guy.
Yeah.
Like he came back and for like a final battle kind of thing.
Like the first time he meets him, they have like a
fight, but he doesn't kill him, and then he comes back later, and that would have
kidnaps the girl to say like.
That would have been more hard hitting, and it would have been more effective. Like the fucking Shira guy, like that guy's just a goof. Like it feels really weird how he just shows up again. Like again, that's probably a character who has a bigger arc in the manga, and they just kind of threw him in there for like shits and giggles. But in the movie, he just really felt like he came and went out of nowhere,
And it was just kind of like. You don't really care about the character because okay, cool, he's a tough guy and shit like that.
Well, because in the manga, he's probably kind of meant to be like a foil to Manji, like because he's taking his title, pretending to be the 100 Killer, but he's like a complete asshole with no honor, and he's like a rapist. So it's again, there's probably like more to that in the manga, but they couldn't really do much with him there. Like again, the other immortal guy felt like he was a much stronger kind of antagonist who matched Manji's struggle.
So I haven't read the manga, but
me neither, obviously.
I've been thinking like, would this movie have taken a better stance in that terms in regards with the characters if they were more creative with how they went about it instead of like sticking to the manga? They went like,
I don't know, because again, it's hard for me to say. I haven't really read the manga, and like, who knows? Like the ending feels almost like open-ended, so maybe they might make sequels. Maybe there's more to it in the manga, because like the general story of the girl Rin wanting revenge against this guy and the people that kill her family, that was resolved. But I felt like the kind of wider story with the weird chick, the crone lady who made him into an immortal, like that felt like it was never quite resolved. Like they did have the scene where he's getting attacked by the bandits and she's there and she says, you could just choose to die, but he keeps fighting. Like I feel like that was kind of their way to cap that off, showing that he could just choose to die if he wanted to, but he still keeps being defiant for a reason, so obviously he's not ready to die yet, kind of thing. Like the movie kind of surprised me because I ththought that's what they were going for. Like it was going to be him kind of finally dying, able to rest after all that, but instead they went the opposite direction. Instead, he's going to stick around and protect her.
Honestly, the ending was like pure bait for a sequel.
It kind of did feel that way, and I'd be okay if they made sequels. If there's more in the manga they can adapt, I don't know.
Make it black and white.
Yeah.
Make a cut where it's black and white.
Yeah, you love that black and white shit.
Honestly, if they have the same problem as here in America with the whole black and white not being appealing, just make it so that blood is actually red. So that,
Well, the issue with that, like, that's a cool thing, like the idea of making blood red, but the problem is a lot of the time, that's the reason they do black and white, oddly enough. Like, in the first Kill Bill movie, there's a whole part in the fight where it goes black and white, and that's not for art. That's because they would have given him an NC-17. Like, there was too much blood, so he had he had to make a compromise there.
Yeah, that makes sense. They do that in like gaming reviews and stuff. But so all in all, with this movie, like the characters with the actors and how they portrayed it. I found Rin, the actress, kind of sometimes screamed a bit too much, but
Yeah.
I understood where she was coming
She
from.
was a good actress in like the quiet moments,
Yeah.
you know, but the moments where she's kind of screaming and monologuing were a bit over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, at the end, against the whole army.
The end was kind of weird, where all of a sudden she's defending this guy.
Yeah,
but it was an interesting idea. It's more like she's not standing up for him, but more standing up for the concept of honor, I think.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, like he did kill her dad in like a one-on-one fight, so.
She's gonna like, you know, one eye for an eye type of thing.
Yeah.
So like with him trying to protect Rin, and we see the sister from before, you know, and like.
Yeah, and another thing that felt underdeveloped was the chick who shows up to save him at the end and then dies.
Yeah.
Like again, in the manga, I'm sure there's a much bigger relationship between those two and something going on.
The way he looked at her and the way she just kind of dived off the fucking rooftop.
That was a bit weird, yeah.
That was one of those deaths where it's just like, all right, so just stand there, ready, okay, drop, and cut. All right, we got the scene. And that's pretty much how they filmed it.
Well, it just felt kind of weird and unnecessary. Like,
Yeah.
she gets shot, and she leaps onto there to kill these guys, and then gets shot more times and falls off and dies. Like,
See, I don't know if liking the movie The Last Samurai is bad or anything, but I did kind of like the concept of how they did their warfare in that movie. You know, artillery versus swords. And in this movie, like you mentioned a really good point where why didn't they bring the guns before when they were doing all this shit? Like they could have just easily taken these guys out.
yeah, but maybe they just didn't have that many. I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe there were practical limitations.
So
Well,
then,
I just mean like earlier on in the battle, like if your plan was to kill this specific guy, then why not just have like like a bunch of guys with guns? Because they even showed like in the movie, you saw like there was one line of guys that fired, and then the other line stepped up and fired.
Fired
Like
squad.
yeah, those guns only had one round, so that's how they did it back then. There would be
Yeah.
like one line of guys, and then the other would step up and do a barrage.
well, they do the whole
Yeah, exactly. So they could have
thing.
done that. Just surround the guy with fucking matchlocks and blow him away, but then you can't have a huge epic fight. So, you know. I think the guns just came out at the end as kind of like a dramatic thing. Like, oh,
The stakes got higher.
yeah. But then they just immediately die, and it's not an issue, but
No.
it's fine. It's fun.
I think, yeah, that's the sacrifice you gotta do in films. If this were a video game, honestly, like Ghost of
It'd be a pretty
Tsushima,
good
like, kind of like,
Yeah.
has, I don't know, I haven't played that game, but
Well, that's
I feel
kind of what
like-
made me want to watch this movie. I was playing
Yeah.
like Nioh 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, and I was like, I want to see like a samurai movie.
You know, it's like, it's one of those rare samurai movies that you kind of seen this type of plot before, but it
It's
feels
yeah,
fresh.
like it does feel like it reminded me of the movie True Grit,
Mm.
which is a western. Like, did you ever see that one?
The one,
You saw the
one
Jeff
with-
Bridges remake,
Yeah,
yeah,
I saw
but
that one.
it's pretty much the same movie, honestly. Like, it's literally, like, honestly, like the Coen Brothers version is actually a bit more complete because they included scenes from the book that the original. Because the thing is, like, the second True Grit isn't a remake. Like, the Coen Brothers never saw the original.
Huh.
They were adapting the book. Like, they were just doing their own adaptation of the book, so. Like, the original version had a whole different, happier ending, and, you know, like, the ending of the new one is way grimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. That,
In the original one, she doesn't lose her arm. Like, at the end, he's still alive, and they just kind of say goodbye to her, and he jumps over the fence on his horse, and big heroic music. But yeah, they adapted the more real ending. But it reminded me of that, you know, like a girl having, like, this badass kind of warrior help her find, like, the revenge kind of thing. But yeah, it's a similar formula, but, you know, you can do a lot of things with a kind of formula. I feel like, especially in the world of, like, manga and comic books, like, you can just take an idea that's been done before and just make it, like, utterly kind of crazy and over the top and demented.
that's true.
Yeah.
Like, the greatest thing I think this movie had to itself was it captivated you with the whole black and white in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, something you see, and you mentioned also, it's like, holy crap, this one shot is basically kind of like a manga panel right there.
Yeah.
You know, so black and white, of course, you read that usually in comics and like over there in manga's form.
Yeah, over there the mangas are in black and white usually.
Yeah. So then that switch that we saw in the beginning when he becomes immortal, you know, it was an interesting twist of just seeing like, okay, now he has new life, you could say, and now he sees the world in color. Whereas I think,
Yeah, your way of doing it would have been the opposite.
Yeah.
that would have been an interesting trick.